And welcome to Harris Cemetery Revisited, part of John's Eclectic Photo Time Adventure, episode 26. Night of Stars at Harris Cemetery. Harris Cemetery Revisited. The two-lane highway stretched endlessly before John, its yellow center line cutting a path through the stillness of the Texas countryside. It had been weeks since his last attempt at photographing the night sky from Harris Cemetery, an attempt that ended in disappointment when the glow of distant city lights and the frantic flicker of fireflies overran his carefully planned exposures. But tonight, things felt different. As the sun began to dip, John pulled into the modest gas station along the way, its flickering fluorescent sign buzzing against the warm evening air. He leaned against his truck, took out his phone, and snapped a quick selfie. Dusty ball cap, hint of a smile, the setting sun casting an amber rim light on his face. For Maya, he thought, and tapped send. She was hundreds of miles away on a business trip, but he knew she'd appreciate the update. Back on the road, the miles fell away in silence. Somewhere west of everywhere and east of nowhere, the Texas plains opened into vast emptiness. John pulled over, stepped into the still air, and lifted his camera. The horizon was a single, unbroken line, just an ocean of landscape stretching in all directions. He framed the shot and clicked the shutter. The photo was stark and lonely, the very definition of nothing to see for miles. 2 hours later, the asphalt gave way to crunching gravel, then to the softer thud of packed dirt. The narrow road seemed to stretch into eternity, flanked by knee-high grass whispering in the breeze. John stopped to stretch, taking one shot looking back at the path he'd come from, and another towards the faint silhouette of the hill ahead, the hill that held the Harris Cemetery. The cemetery gate creaked under his hand, and John paused to photograph the weathered metal nameplate before stepping through. Atop the hill, the landscape opened wide, the small cluster of headstones framed by open sky. He began to scout. Near the north side of the ground stood a modest structure, more shed than outhouse. It was, he decided, the perfect anchor for a star trail composition. This would also be where he mounted the SeeStar 50S, to track a nebula hidden deep in the northern sky. The clouds were minimal tonight, thin mid-level wisp already sliding away towards the east. The air smelled faintly of dry grass and stone. Exploring further, John spotted something unusual near the tree line. A mushroom, oddly shaped, as though sculptured by some eccentric artisan of the forest. Dropping to one knee, he swapped to a micro lens, meticulously photo-stacked a dozen frames for later merging in Photoshop. A few feet away, a delicate blue and white wildflower caught his eye, and he bent to capture its fragile symmetry. By the time he returned to the picnic table at the center of the cemetery, the air had grown still. He unpacked his gear in a careful order. The Canon R5 Mark II for the star trails and macro work. The Canon R6 Mark II for the wide field Milky Way shots. Tripods were extended and leveled. Memory cards were checked and replaced. Batteries were fresh. Before the light faded completely, John wandered the grounds. He photographed the historical plaque at the entrance, noting the solemn fact that this hill had been in use since at least 1874. Near one stone, the twitch of movement caught his eye. A rabbit, ears alert, paused beside the grave of a little girl who had passed in 2011 at just 5 years old. The juxtaposition was quietly heartbreaking. Farther in, time itself had worn away the names and dates on century-old markers. John found 2 particular headstones whose shapes and placement would serve perfectly as foreground for light-painted Milky Way frames. As the sun bled into the horizon, turning the west to deep orange red, the mosquitoes emerged for their nightly raid. Night fell, and John placed 2 LED panels about 100 feet from his star trail foreground, each dimmed to just 1%, enough to softly sculpt the stones without overpowering the sky. The first star trail session captured more fireflies than he'd hoped to avoid, but the second was cleaner, bug-free, and even caught a meteor streaking across the lower left corner of the frame. The Milky Way was spectacular tonight. In the first frame, the foreground lay in deep shadows, giving the galaxy an almost ghostly prominence. In the second, the faint glow of the headstone, grass, and nearby trees gave the scene a quiet warmth. The R6 Mark II rendered 3 frames at a crisp 3200 Kelvin white balance, each revealing subtle differences in mood. In the final image, his light painting brought the rightmost fir tree into focus while breathing gentle highlights onto the stones below. Hours passed unnoticed, the night wrapping around him like a quiet shroud. When the last exposures were secured, John began packing up, sweeping his UV flashlight over the ground where his tripods had been. He froze. Just feet from where he'd been standing was a scorpion, its body glowing an eerie green-blue under the light. He laughed under his breath, pulling out his phone for a quick photo. Another good reason to use a 3-legged stool instead of sitting on the grass, he thought. The night had been everything he'd hoped for. Clear skies, a meteor, a Milky Way worth framing, and not a hint of city glow on the horizon. The Fireflies had tried, but tonight they had not won. As John drove back down the dirt road toward the sleeping plains, the images on his memory card felt like quiet treasures, moments pulled from the stillness of Harris Cemetery, preserved against the tide of time. As John drove, he wondered what the SeeStar 50S nebula had been captured this night. And the SeeStar 50S telescope was supposed to, or did, capture IC 1318, part of the Swan Nebula. And if it turned out any good, or even not, here's the picture. Thank you. And thanks again for watching Harris Cemetery Revisited, episode 26 of John's Eclectic Photo Time Story Adventure. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit that like button and consider subscribing. Thank you. And what follows are some of the videos I took while doing this episode while out in the field. I did not incorporate them into the storybook, and I am considering just doing a separate standalone with these videos and the pictures attached. Anyways, here are some of the videos that I captured while out taking this presentation. Thank you. So today we are heading out to the Harris Cemetery over here in Sam Saba County. Today is the 22nd of July. It's pretty much the first clear night that we've had for skies in probably about 3 or 4 weeks. Actually, since the full moon episode that I did over Colleen. So here is the road going out to pretty much nowhere, Texas. As you can see, there is not a lot out here in central West Texas. So once I get out to the cemetery and get everything set up, so we plan on doing a couple things tonight. We plan on doing star trails, of course, and we brought out our SeeStar 50S, and we're going to try and capture a galaxy or a nebula that's up north that I cannot get from my house. And then of course we're going to get the Milky Way. We're going to practice around doing some continuous photos, maybe 40 frames, and then take 20 flats and then put those in a program and check the difference out, see how doing that works over just using the current programs. All right, more shortly. So we've made the turn off of Highway 190, and we are now on County Road 132 heading towards the Harris Cemetery, which is about 2 miles up that way. And we have arrived out here at the Harris Cemetery. This cemetery is out here on a small little hill out here nowhere. So this is the cemetery, and that is the road up, and it's in and out on your own. And we have arrived up here at the cemetery, and we're going to go scout out the different locations. This is the road up, and while this might look like an outhouse, this is actually, it looks like a tool shed or storage shed, and we're going to use that for our point of target, pretty much facing north, and we're going to use an LED light to slowly light the bottom, and then after the star trail do some light painting, see how that works. And here is a plaque, Historic Texas Cemetery, Harris Cemetery. I'll take a picture of this, but basically this was already in use in 1874, and it became a Historic Texas Cemetery in 2000. So once again, we're going to be doing a star trail and the SeeStar S50 50S from this location. Once again, we're going to do the star trails from there, and then have the SeeStar telescope set up over here so it can point up towards the north. Turning around here, here is the cemetery, and we're going to go walk through this, take some pictures, and see a good position. And because this is a rather small cemetery and there's a tree line pretty much right in front of us, right over here. The last time we tried to do this, we did this closer to that gravel area in front of us. This time though, we're looking this way, and we're going to go down here and capture those in our foreground. At least that's our intent. And we're going to try and get the curvature of the Milky Way if possible. The position we just pointed, that's pretty much southeast at 148 degrees. I got the sun coming in through behind me there. So that's going to be our position for the two tripods. So the sun has just gone down over the horizon, and so now it's time to start getting the SeeStar set up. And for tonight, I'm going to be using this ball head on the SeeStar tripod, because I'm going to be putting it in equatorial mount. And I was thinking about using this ball head, but because the equatorial mount needs such small adjustments to make it work, I switched over to this one, because for shooting the Milky Way, once I get on target, I just need to be able to go left and right, and I can just do that from the top here to work on getting the arc of the Milky Way. So I do have one issue though with using this ball head, and I'll show you here, is that I have to put this on this is a 120 millimeter bracket, because these, you'll see right there, sticks up too high, and that is an issue. Now the other issue is because these legs don't go out any further, and I've had it fall over once before, but it was a little windy. So let me pause it here and I'll show you what I'm talking about. I'm at 31 degrees latitude. So here is the setup. This is not really at 31 degrees yet. I have to go down even lower at the angle, but you can see from here. So one of the things that they tell you in all the training guides and everything is to make sure that the front of the machine is centered with that leg, and that leg's going to be pointing towards the North Star the best you can. So that's one of the concerns with this setup, is how far over that thing has to lean. And like I said, that's probably about 40 degrees, so I still have another 9 degrees to tilt that down in order to get this to go into equatorial mount. Now from the home, I can never do more than 10 seconds. So today, out here in the wilderness, where this is a Bortle 2, Bortle 3 area, so I'm going to try for 20 seconds today. This will be my first attempt. And so now with the setting sun, of course, we've got the mosquitoes, so I've got a bandana on. And so once again, this needs to point as best north as possible. And so showing you right here, so I think I paid $12-13 just for a very simple compass, similar to the lensatic compass in the military that I was used to. And as you can see, it's slowly going around. Give it some wiggles. Make sure that it's pointing north. And so we've got it pretty much spot on right now. Sitting down here, once again, you want that front leg, because once that thing goes down, that's where all the weight's going to be. And those legs on the SeeStar tripod that comes with the system do not expand out any further, which I don't understand why, because there's no center beam, so they theoretically should be able to go down further. So now that we have this, and then over here is going to be our setup. It's the Canon R5 and just the bottom part of a monopod that I'm going to use to set up. And once again, I'm going to set that up with that building right over there. Alright, so a bandana is a great ensemble to add now that the sun's going down. The mosquitoes are pretty horrific. And here's our setup for our star trails. Once again, we have this, it's not an outhouse, it's a storage building. And let's see if I can get this to come down to the screen. I've lightened it up. Let's see if I can adjust it here. So there's the outhouse. And here's my 1/3 line just along the trees. So we've got the star trail just above that. So we'll see how that works.